Okay, hi everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started since we have a good number and I want to keep us to time today. So welcome to this information session for the 2024 Asia Pacific WEPs Awards. My name is Amy and I'm with our UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific with our Women's Economic Empowerment team who leads the WEPs Awards. Sitting here in Bangkok, joining you today, and I'll take you through this information session. So we're in meeting format, so you can feel free to put any questions you might have in the chat. But what we're going to do is walk through a bit of background to the WEPs Awards, what the WEPs Awards are, and then we'll go in detail through the application process. I will answer some frequently asked questions, but if you want to ask other ones live, you will have the chance in this call. So it's really for you, which is also why it's in meeting format. And just feel free in the chat as well if I'm speaking too fast or if you can't see anything clearly, just let me know. Okay. So really what's bringing us all here today, the WEPs or the Women's Empowerment Principles. So this is a framework that was developed in 2010 by UN Women and UN Global Compact as really the only kind of framework guiding private sector action for gender equality across the whole value chain. So we have these 7 principles, and we often say WEPs follows this value chain approach because it looks at the workplace, so corporate leadership, 3 different principles or WEPs on gender inclusive workplace. And then it also dives into the marketplace, looking at your advertising, marketing practices, but also your supply chain and into the community and also advocacy work you might be doing with partners and undergirded by a principle of measurement and reporting. So any private sector entity is eligible to sign the WEPs. It's not for nonprofits. It is designed as a private sector framework. And we have almost 10,000 signatories globally. We will get there soon. And in the Asia Pacific, this is almost a third of the community. We have more than 2,560 companies that have signed on to commit to the WEPs. So we've been doing a lot of this work and growing the WEPs community since 2019 from our regional office. And we knew that a lot of companies in the region were doing really good work on gender, innovative work, working across all the different principles. And we wanted to do something to recognize this action and also kind of showcase what was being done and some best practices. So in 2020, we launched the WEPs Awards. We held the first ever Asia Pacific WEPs Awards. To really recognize this action, showcase this action across all of the region. We ran this for 3 cycles from 2020 to 2022. And in total, across those 3 cycles, we had more than 1,500 applications from more than 1,000 companies. So each company can submit up to 2 applications. So 1,000 companies, more than 1,500 applications, and over the 3 years and across national and regional ceremonies that I'll explain, we've awarded more than 300 leaders and companies for their actions. So our awards categories, which you can see on the right, and I will explain more, follow the WEPs principles. So we have leadership, workplace, marketplace, community engagement and partnerships, transparency and reporting. And then we also have an additional award for SMEs, and we have a special category each year. So I'll reveal the 2024 category soon. I already wanted to answer one question in the chat because they might have missed it. So this is for private companies only. I know that there's an incredible amount of good work being done across the region by NGOs, by CSOs, also by government partners, but the WEPs is only for private sector entities. So the WEPs Awards are for private sector. I'll go over eligibility a bit more later, but social enterprises are also still eligible, but nonprofits are not, unfortunately. Okay, we'll skip that. I just wanted to show very quickly, just to give you a sense of who is awarded in previous times. So This is what we call our wall of awardees from 2022. The last time we held the WEPs Awards, and we actually had 22 awardees for that cycle because we had 4 awardees in this youth leadership category. So you'll see there's some very recognizable company names up there, multinationals. There's also a lot of SMEs. More than half of that WEPs community in the Asia Pacific are SMEs, less than 250 employees. So they're really the kind of backbone of our regional economy and driving a lot of our WEPs community work. And then we do also have that award for individuals as well. So this was the last time that we celebrated the WEPs Awards. What we did last year was a little bit different, and this does link to the WEPs Awards for this year. So we decided for the first time to gather all of our WEPs community together. We had held 3 cycles of the WEPs Awards, but it mostly been virtual going through COVID. And so last year we brought everyone together for the first time. And we had our WEPs Forum in Manila in November. So this was really the first convening of our community. We shared best practices. A lot of the speakers that joined this forum are from our WEPs awardee pool that we chose, and then highlighted the different work that they were doing. And we also discussed different areas. So we looked back at this report we published called Trends and Opportunities to Advance Gender Equality in the Asia Pacific. Actually, the WEPs Forum report is out now. Maybe I'll ask my colleague to put the link in the chat if you want to look back and see some of the findings and learnings we had from that WEPs Forum. So what we're going to do moving forward, we actually have new programming launching on the WEPs starting from this year. So we're going to move into a 2-year cycle with the WEPs Awards and the WEPs Forum. So if you come here today and you're not sure if you're ready to apply for the WEPs Awards, I would encourage you to do it. This will not happen again until 2026. So this will be an alternating cycle. We'll have the WEPs Awards this year, and then next year we'll have a WEPs Forum. In 2026, the WEPs Awards will happen again. One of the unique things, which I'm really excited about from this new 2-year cycle, is the awardees from 2024 will then get the chance to re-showcase what they're doing at the WEPs Forum next year. So normally we only are able to have that kind of virtual celebration, but next year we'll be able to have the awardees come together again at the WEPs Forum. So apply this year if you're thinking about it, and there's that extra special kind of visibility and sharing next year at the WEPs Forum. Okay, I'm going to move into some details about the WEPs Awards. So I'm going to talk a lot, I'm sorry, but it's recorded. We will share the slides. And I want to make sure everybody has all the details and questions answered. So as we said earlier, this is open to all private sector organizations in the Asia Pacific. So really, if you're eligible to join the WEPs, you can apply for the WEPs Awards. The very rare exception to this are chambers of commerce and industry associations who are often registered as nonprofits, but they are eligible to join the WEPs. So stock exchanges can join as private entities, but chambers of commerce, industry bodies, or association can join. And really the whole range of solo entrepreneurs can still join, up to multinational corporates and social enterprises as well. Investors, banks, private education institutions, if anyone's registered as a private entity, they can join the WEPs and apply for the WEPs Awards. So one note that I want to make, this is all part of a regional process where anyone across Asia Pacific can apply. But we do have special national processes and ceremonies in select countries where we have dedicated UN Women programming. So we will have national awards. Sorry, I got distracted by the chat. But yes, so we will have national awards in India, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. What this means is that we have a national pool beforehand, and we will select up to 21 awardees for each of those countries, and they'll have a dedicated national ceremony. After that, the top winners from those countries will go on to the regional awards ceremony, almost like a football tournament. You're not competing against other countries, but you have that local pool, and then the top winners get awarded locally, but then advance to the regional ceremony. Everyone else, if you're applying from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Fiji, Cambodia, Laos, goes straight into the regional pool. It comes to me at the regional level and goes in. And then I do just want to make one note. I'll explain how the scoring process works, but one of the unique things about the WEPs Awards as well is that all of the actual awardees are chosen by an expert jury panel from external people who have expertise in business and gender. And they join us from a wide range of kind of stakeholders. They're the ones that actually choose the final awardees. So I already know my next slide is wrong. I apologize. I need to change this timeline. Applications were originally due to close on the 30th. Right now, the deadline is extended until July 15th. I will tell you all joining this call, if you cannot make July 15th, let us know, send me an email or our team, and we can work with you. We will leave the portal open until July 31st. So if you want to apply, July 15th is too soon, let us know. We can work with you to still make sure you can submit the application. August and September is really when we go through a shortlisting process internally, and then we notify applicants by September if they're shortlisted or not. And then in September, also, they will go to the national judges where we have national ceremonies. And then in October, we'll celebrate those national ceremonies. In November, this will be late November, is the regional ceremony. This will most likely be a virtual ceremony for everyone joining around the region. But again, we'll have that opportunity next year at the WEPs Forum to kind of celebrate regional winners in person. Okay. So we always have five main categories that we follow. This is leadership commitment, gender inclusive workplace, community engagement and partnerships, gender responsive marketplace, transparency and reporting. And for this year, our highlighted category is innovative financing. We were really inspired this year by the International Women's Day theme, which was Invest in Her, Accelerate Progress. And we wanted to have a dedicated award to recognize some of the great work that's being done. I'll go through and explain the categories, but one note to explain what's up here. Each of these categories has 3 awardees, a winner, a first runner-up, and a second runner-up. So across the 6 categories, we have 18 awardees, 6 times 3. And then what we also do is give 3 additional SME Champions Awards. You'll see how this works a bit later on, but basically we do also assess the application based on your internal policies and practices, and we know that not a lot of the SMEs in our region have had the chance yet or the human resource capacity to build a lot of these internal policies. So we actually pull them out and put them in a separate pool to judge them separately to make sure you're not competing against one of the multinational corporates that has, you know, a ton of capacity to develop these policies and implement them. So in total, we usually have a suite of 21 awardees. There is the occasion like last 2022 where we have really exceptional applications and we might have 22, but usually it's 21. Okay, we'll go to the categories. We're doing good on time. So leadership commitment is the only award that goes to an individual. All the rest go to the organization. And this award, I think one of the first things to say, this can go to a person of any gender. This is not an award for women leaders. We've had a lot of fantastic women leaders. We've also had male leaders win this award as well. And it's not to recognize female leaders who have made it to leadership positions. It's really leaders who are implementing gender equality in their organization, making commitments to gender equality externally, or the ones that set the tone that want to build gender equality into the business model as well, and promote it throughout the company. So this goes to the individual. There's no age limit to this award. In past years, we did have a Youth Leadership Award category. We're not able to hold that this year, but any age group can apply. If we do see some really exceptional young applicants, we might have a special kind of recognition for a youth leader. But any age, and also does not have to be a titled CEO. This could also be someone in a leadership role in a company that's really advancing gender equality. It's really recognizing that leadership capacity and commitment to drive the agenda. Okay, the next one is gender inclusive workplace. So this really covers 3 different WEP principles, WEP 2, 3, and 4. And this one is very broad. So when you do this for the category, you can submit for just one thing you've done. Maybe you're looking at revamping your recruitment to have more equal recruitment. You can submit just for that initiative, or maybe you're doing a bunch of different things to create inclusive workplace. You can also submit an application covering all of those things. Some of what this includes, again, it's very broad, but it could also be flexible work arrangements, supporting employees with care responsibilities, whether that's childcare or care for their parents or care for relatives, supporting that kind of work-life balance, guaranteeing the safety and well-being of female and male employees. We've also seen interesting applications in the past of people providing safe transportation to and from work in certain instances to ensure that that whole work experience was safe. Promoting women's career development and leadership. WEP Principle 4 is on training and development. So this is where, if you have a program promoting women into leadership positions, this is where you would apply. If you have those kind of mentoring programs identifying strong leaders in your pipeline. Maybe you're trying to get more women into underrepresented jobs. We've had applications in the past of companies trying to get in very male-dominated industries, trying to get female leaders or to be the first kind of female supervisor at a factory, for example. So that would fit here. This could also be broader diversity and inclusion efforts if you're focusing on gender, but also disability inclusion, age, education background, ethnic background. We also want to hear about that as well. Gender responsive marketplace. This is where we go into WEP Principle 5. And we see, I think, a little bit less work companies in the region are doing in this area, but still some great examples. And this one kind of has 2 different pillars. So on the one side is actually looking at your supply chain, so your marketplace. So this would be supplier diversity programs or gender responsive procurement programs. So this might be trying to track, okay, how many of our suppliers are owned by women or owned by men? Do our suppliers also have commitments to gender equality? Or maybe in our supplier code of conduct, we're going to enhance our requirements for gender equality commitments. Or maybe we're actually going to set a target that we're going to do 10% procurement spend on women-owned businesses this year. And looking into how you're actually supporting that marketplace development. This could also be programs that support women entrepreneurs or women in the marketplace who you may want to eventually enter your workplace by supporting them with market opportunities or capacity building opportunities. The other pillar of this is actual marketing and advertising. So this looks at what are you doing through your advertising practices to maybe break gender stereotypes, to try and challenge stereotypes, or to try and shift the portrayal of how gender is represented. So we see a lot of interesting brands often compete in this category. Maybe they have a campaign trying to show men also sharing the parenting responsibilities for children, sort of kind of showing that men also can have that equal share of responsibility and not just stereotypically women. So 2 sides to this in marketplace, again, a company or an organization. And then we go down into community engagement and partnerships. So the first angle for this, looking more into the community, this can be kind of classic CSR or integrating sustainability and gender into CSR strategies to support communities, maybe where you implement, or maybe it's actually part of your business model to work with different local communities. What we don't want to see is just the resources to a CSR initiative. If you're dedicating a lot of financial resources to a CSR initiative, but someone else is fully implementing it, and the company isn't involved in designing or implementing or monitoring, it's probably not right for the WEPs awards. We would want to see that you're not only putting some financial resources, but potentially in-kind resources, helping design it, helping, if it's a program supporting, for example, young women to learn how to code, and you're a tech company, if you kind of provide some resources for a program, but maybe you also have some of your employees lead some of the trainings or provide some mentoring sessions, that would be something we're interested in. The other element of this partnerships as well is maybe partnering with local institutions or government or NGOs, research institutions to advance gender equality. We've also seen some really neat partnerships examples in the past. This could also be taking it a step higher and looking at industry change or joining kind of a wider industry alliance or partnership to create change in the industry. So one example of this is the Unstereotype Alliance. It's a group of marketing and advertising agencies, companies who come together to try and come up with new campaigns or use their influence and their leverage to break stereotypes and show new portrayals of gender. So it could also be that wider participation. Okay. Transparency and reporting, not always everyone's favorite, but a category very dear to our heart because we know how much power it has for change. So quite direct, companies that are really taking steps to track their gender data, maybe collect more gender data or disaggregate the data they do collect by gender, and also publicly report on it. So this could be that you're, publicly reporting a lot of your different gender metrics, maybe women in leadership, but women employees, the pay gap potentially, or you're reporting, hours of training or retention rates, maybe after taking maternity or paternity leave. Measures you might have in place for a gender equal workplace. This doesn't have to be public reporting. It could also be maybe you're taking steps just to better track your data, to build measurement and KPIs into what you're doing for your gender equality action plan. So even if you're an SME or a very small organization, maybe you want to start tracking, the number of suppliers you work with that are owned by women. So you start doing this in the small supplier database that you have. That would still be eligible for this award. So it's not just transparency and public reporting, but also measurement, accountability, trying to build in the data element to help you drive forward the gender agenda. This in particular as well is relevant a lot for industry associations or stock exchanges who may be trying to advocate for more gender data in the industry. It could also be a private entity. We've seen examples that develop frameworks for transparency and reporting to help with gender data as well. Okay, and I'll go on to the last category. I see a question in two questions that I see in the chat. I've got them and I will answer those a bit later, but thanks for putting them in. Okay, innovative financing. Yep. So this one, as I said, inspired by International Women's Day. Really looking, this can cover financial institutions, banks, stock exchanges, or other corporates. Maybe they have investing arms as well that are using financing to promote gender equality, and especially looking to do so in new ways. So this could be designing a new product or service, a financial instrument, maybe a loan. We've seen good examples in the past of microfinance loans or bank types of loans or products for women SMEs. a fund or a gender framework that really advances gender equality in any way. This could even be financing, I think, just to make sure people realize it can be broad. This could be financing to support gender-based violence measures, for example. It's not just on women's economic empowerment, but this could really be leveraging that finance aspect within the financial industry and of capital to drive gender equality. So this could also be issuing a gender bond. We've seen some banks in our region issue gender bonds or launch a gender lens fund or a new product. This could also be an organization developing a framework to help drive more capital to support women entrepreneurs or gender equality, or to accelerate gender lens investing. We've seen some interesting frameworks like this that help drive forward the overall industry. What this one is not for is for financing projects without involvement. So similar to the community work and CSR funds, if it's a company that or an investor that has maybe put a lot of financial resources towards a great fund or project, but they're not involved in the design, it probably wouldn't be right for the WEPs awards. Okay, those are all the categories. I'm just going to clarify already one question in the chat about the categories. So I'm going to go through the application now, and yes, you can apply for 2 categories, up to 2 categories, and the categories are the same for regional and national. There's just one application. I'll show you the portal, you fill that in, and then it either comes to the regional team or to the national team. So if you're not from one of the countries I mentioned before, like if you're from China, for example, someone in the chat, your application will come to us at the regional level. We won't have the national dedicated process in China, similar to Cambodia or Pakistan or Papua New Guinea, but your application comes to us at regional level, and we do the broader regional application. So you still have that chance to win at the regional level. Okay, so who should apply? We covered some of this earlier. It's for everyone in business. SMEs, single entrepreneurs, multinational stock exchanges as well. All companies registered and operating in Asia Pacific. All nationalities can apply for the leadership position. If you're from Japan, but you operate a company in Malaysia, you can win the leadership award for the Malaysia WEPs Awards, for example. It doesn't have to be only nationals. Also, you don't need to be a WEP signatory to apply. If you want to be awarded, you'll have to become a WEP signatory before the award. But if this is the first time you've ever heard of the WEPs today, don't worry. You don't have to be a signatory to apply. If you do already want to become a signatory, it's a very simple process. You sign a CEO statement of support, or the person with the highest authority in the office signs. And then you upload with a short application online. There's no fee to join the WEPs, and there's no reporting requirement. And it is an aspiration. No company on earth is implementing all seven WEPs at the same time perfectly. It's really just making that commitment to try and implement as much as you can and where you're at in your journey. Okay, I don't need to go over that, but maybe one note on why apply. We've heard a lot of interesting feedback from companies over the years that it helps them benchmark the progress and where they are. So I will take you through the application, and there are supporting documents. I see some questions about that. So it will help you kind of do a little bit of digging in your own journey of gender equality. So it helps you benchmark, but really having the visibility if you become an awardee can be really important. So it helps show what you're doing to your stakeholders, to your customers, to your partners, to future talent. But it also helps us build the case of best practices of what's happening in the region. So we usually have case studies, short case studies that we write on the winners that go on the global WEPs.org website. So WEPs as a global platform has a dedicated global website. We also have testimonial videos that feature what our companies are doing that go on our YouTube channel. This is our previous program called We Empower Asia, was where we started the WEPs Awards. So there's a really good mix of national, regional, and global visibility. And also, whenever we have speakers for different events, the first thing that comes to mind are our WEPs Awards. It's kind of a pool of champions that we have of the top leaders that we can pull from. And we have such a good kind of range of applications now that it's like, oh, you know, we're looking for an SME that's working on this. And then we have that example from the WEPs Awards, or we need a corporate that's working on procurement. Oh, we have that example from the WEPs Awards. And then I think one thing I would say also, not on why apply, but maybe just one tip so I don't forget it, is also if you feel intimidated and you think there's no way you can win, I would still encourage you to apply. Every year we hear examples, especially from SMEs, but also from larger companies that they thought, you know, I'm not going to apply, we're not ready, we haven't done enough. And then they applied and they ended up winning. So I would just encourage you, if you're interested and you think you're not there, to just try. Okay, so the application process. This is the hard part, where all the work comes in. So everything is done on our website, AsiaPacificWEPsAwards.org. You choose your language, click on it, it takes you to the application. There are 3 sections to the application. And you can also save it and come back at any time. So the standard language is English. We have translations for Thai, Vietnamese, and Bahasa Indonesia because we have dedicated programs there. But for the others, it needs to be in English. You do have to upload supporting documents. Those can be in your local language, and we can work with our country teams to translate those, but the main application needs to be in English. So you can apply for up to 2 categories, and there are 3 parts. So part 1 is just general information about the company. Part 2 is general questions. This is often the hardest part, but we have ways to help companies of all size with this. So it's multiple choice questions. It looks at your internal policies and practices aligned to all of the different WEPs principles. So we leave this part in the application because we do want to make sure we're awarding companies that are taking good steps internally, not just with the part 3 category question, right? Especially if it's a larger company, we want to make sure we're not just awarding the kind of maybe external efforts, but also what they're doing to implement the WEPs. And then in part 2 and 3, you're asked to submit those supporting documents that help give evidence to the answers that you give, that show us proof of what you're doing. And we do have a special way to help smaller organizations for this. Okay. So let me show you this. Yeah, I'll just show you this on the PowerPoint now, and we can go to the website later. So that part 1 is just general questions, number of employees, percentage of women employees, Part 2 is where we ask you that multiple choice question. So you select the answer, and these are automatically scored. So each answer choice has a point value. And so whatever you select, it automatically gives you that point. And then we ask you to upload the document. So for example, I guess I can zoom in. Does your company offer and support paid maternity leave? This is for your full-time employees. So you might say yes, aligned with national requirements in the country of operation. We ask you to specify the number of days. We also ask about paternity leave, and then we ask you to upload a written description. So if you're a larger company and you have this policy, we ask that you upload the PDF. If you're an SME and you don't have this yet, what you can actually do is just in a Word document, get a blank Word document and write a description to us and say, you know, we have maternity leave, you know, policies for our full-time staff, but we don't have the policy developed yet, or we're a startup and none of our, employees have taken maternity yet, we don't have a policy. Explain it to us, upload the Word document, and then we read all of this. We actually go through all of this. So then we will know, okay, this is an SME, they're new, they're just starting up. We might put you in the SME category. Okay, so part 2 might seem a bit scary, but we go through a lot of work to make sure that we're fair and we don't over advantage big companies or disadvantage SMEs. Part 3 is the category questions. So when you select your 2 categories, you get to this part, and whether it's workplace or marketplace, they all follow the same structure. You have the first section is background and context, and you have 400 words. Let's see if that one, there it goes. Where we ask you, we want to know some background. Why did you do this initiative? What was the problem? What were you trying to solve? What was the purpose? Who were you seeking to impact? And what's the scale of the initiative? Who is involved in doing it? So basically the background. And then the second section is key actions taken and also lessons learned. And so a good tip is to try and answer these different bullet points. Sometimes someone might have a great initiative, but what we see in the application is they're not clear with the actions taken, or it's not clear to us how did they do it, who did they work with it. Giving a timeline would also be good. So yeah, how are you implementing this? Are you working with anyone? Are you collaborating? And then a key thing we want to know are if there's any challenges in implementation. Were there any failures? Maybe you started something at first and it didn't work, and you had to go back and reassess and try something different. We want to actually learn about that and also know what you learned or how you changed to kind of take something forward in the future. And then results and sustainability is the last section. So what are the results you have so far? So this is an important point to note. The WEPs Awards, if you have just started a gender initiative, it's maybe not right yet. We do want you to have some results. Maybe you only have some early results. You're not finished with what you're doing yet. That is still great to share. But if you're just launching something new and it hasn't started yet, and you don't really have any results, it may not be a high scoring application. With the results, try to be specific to give us data or numbers, but qualitative results are good as well. If you have quotes or you have stories, but tell us, how you determined success of the project. What kinds of indicators did you use? Also, how do you plan to carry this forward? We're very curious in knowing, are you planning to expand this or deepen it or just keep it going to see more results, form a new partnership to take it to another region or another market? Let us know. And then similar for this, as in part 2, you have supporting documents. So really provide whatever supports the response. And you have the word limits in the beginning, but you can upload quite a few supporting documents. It's quite a big limit. So you can upload multiple documents. And also you can upload, if you want to send videos, you can either send them to us on WeTransfer or send us a Word document that has a link to Google Drive. You can also send links to Facebook or social media. We have lots of applicants that do that each year, or YouTube videos, or articles. You can really provide us whatever you want that gives evidence, right, or support to the answer that you choose. I'm gonna give one more note on the application. Oi, okay. No, I think it looks normal. Okay, yes. And then when you, this is the wrong email address, sorry. When you're ready to submit, you can save it at any time and come back. I'm going to go over that together actually on the website. And then when you're ready, you submit it. There's just a note on privacy. So we do keep all of the information stored securely. Only the UN Women shortlisting team sees part 2, where you actually upload some policies and practices, and it's all stored securely and only limited people have access. And then part 3 is the one that goes to the judges. I'll talk about this in a minute. That is shared with the judges. But part 2, where you share your internal policies and practices, that's not shared with any external parties. That's only UN Women who does the shortlisting. Okay, so a quick note on scoring. This is important because I know some of you might start the application and look at part 2 and think, it can be a little scary. So part 2 is weighted at 25% and part 3 is at 75% because they do have scores. We are, look at all the qualitative data, but we also work with a quantitative scoring system. So the reason for this is so we don't disadvantage smaller organizations, right? This is an award really looking at your good work in part 3. So that gets the majority of the score. But part 2 counts for something. Where part 2 really comes in is when we have 2 companies next to each other and they're both doing a really good gender initiative, but one of them has a little more internal work on gender equality. And so that one gets the award in the end. That's where really the part 2 score makes the difference sometimes. And this often comes up with larger companies, I would say, where we see really, really close scores, especially for part 3, but one company is doing a little more internally. Sometimes that makes a difference, but don't be scared if you're answering no, no, no to every part 2 question, right? We don't have this yet. We don't have that yet. It's okay. Because especially for smaller organizations, if we see that like maybe 20 companies have scored really low on part 2, but their part 3 is high, the kind of category work, we move them to the SME pool so that we judge them against each other and they have a fair shot. So UN Women does the shortlisting, and then the part 3 of the top shortlisted goes to our jury panels. So we follow a standard scorecard, and we have a briefing session with them beforehand so that we're all on the same page about how to score. We also have them sign kind of a non-disclosure and ethical scoring agreement to ensure that there's no conflict of interest with companies they might be scoring. And then when we get the scores back from the judges, we mash everything together in Excel and let the formula do the trick. And then we actually do determine the final awardees by the number. One other note on this is that we do a little bit of due diligence. We're not asking you for any additional documents aside from what you upload, but we do a little bit of kind of third-party assessment due diligence just to ensure that we're recognizing companies that don't have any potentially controversial practices. Okay, I'm going to take you quickly to the website. Yeah. Okay, I think I've answered the questions in the chat. Okay, everyone should be able to see the website right now, and I'll put the link also in the chat. Okay, so when you're ready, you go to the Apply tab. Let's see, 1:45. Okay, we're okay on time. So as I said, we've extended to July 15th, but you can always send me an email if you need more time. I'm going to put my email in the chat right now and we can talk about it. So this is the apply page. We do have an application guidance that has a few tips and tricks if you want to download this, and also just gives you some additional guidance on what is a good application and what's not. You can actually download the application form in advance. If you want to work on it offline, you can do that. Otherwise, when you're ready, select the language. So I'll choose English. So we use a JotForm as a system to collect our applications. So it's going to take me to the application. And then here's part 1, 2, 3, 4. So part 1, it's going to ask me all these questions, you know, country, general information. In part 1, I choose which categories I want to apply to. So I'm going to choose workplace and community. So then I'm going to go next. So again, part 2 is where it asks you all those internal questions. And some of these questions, for example, number 3, does your company have criteria for promotion of gender equality in selection, hiring, recruitment, promotion, training? Okay, if you're an SME, you want to do these practices or you informally do this, but you don't have anything in writing, click no. And then it will make you upload. But again, get a blank Word document, you know, explain to us and tell us why you don't have this yet, or you don't have HR yet in place, but maybe tell us what you do now, and then upload that Word document. If you're a bigger company and you've got policies covering all of this, you choose D. So we have criteria for 3 or more of these processes. Then you need to upload either policies or Word documents or whatever it is that actually provides evidence for this. So we will go back through and we will say, okay, this company says they have criteria for selection for 3 or more of these areas. So I need to see in the supporting documents that it talks about hiring, retention, and training in terms of gender equality. If I go through and the supporting documents don't support the answer, we might ask you for more documents, or we might go back into the system and change the score so that the actual score is more accurate. So everything you upload is kind of evidence for us to see the answer. We have some other questions like number 2. Do you have a gender equality action plan in place? You might say, yeah, we've started some activities, but no plan. If you say we have done 1 or more of the following, we actually have you select here all that apply. So again, you know, the more you select, the more points you get, but we actually go back through and look at the evidence. So if you select D, we have developed and started implementing a strategy, and we monitor, track, and report. I need to make sure that I see, you know, either timelines or KPIs or your targets for your strategy in order to keep answer option D. So we do take the review process pretty seriously. And then when you're ready, you go to next, to part 3, and then it already has the 2 categories I chose. It has gender inclusive workplace, and it has community engagement and partnerships. So there's a small section for a title, just to give your initiative a title, and then background and context, key actions taken, same thing, results and sustainability. What you can do at any time is save the application and come back. When you hit save, I'm sorry this isn't more clear, but what you can actually do is go to skip, create an account. And then submission saved as draft, so you need to enter your email address. And then you can say send, or you can copy the link. And then you can go back later and finish the application. It always gives you that option. But then when you're ready, you get to the final page, and then you can hit submit for the application. Okay. Okay, let me go to a few frequently asked questions, and then please keep also putting the questions into the chat if you have them. Did I have that? Okay, let me share this full screen again. Okay, someone did ask a question. Supporting document, you're looking for the whole thing or content specific to the question, like employee handbook? Yeah, mostly specific to the question. But if it's more work for you, you can just upload the whole handbook and we can just do a quick search. but really the content should verify the answer of that question. Okay. Okay. Okay, let me go over these questions now, but please raise your hand as well. We're in meeting format, so you can always ask aloud. But I'll go through these questions and I'll keep monitoring the chat as well. So just to clarify, there's no fee to join the WEPs or apply for the WEPs awards. It's fully free. There's no prize money. There's visibility as your award, but there's no fee to participate. If you won in previous years, you can still apply, yes, and you actually can apply for the same category. It just can't be the exact same initiative. If you won for something in 2022 and you haven't, expanded it or continued to run it and have new results, it's not going to be a winner this year. We talked about the application and judging. This just a reminder, yes, if you haven't done much at all yet internally, but you have a really great initiative that you can still apply for, please complete the application. Get in touch with us if you have any doubts or questions. It's not for perfect companies. And like I said, we don't know many that are implementing all WEPs all at the same time. Everybody's at a different stage. Okay, I think, yes, this one is another important one. Multinational, you can submit multiple applications. You can submit for a regional office, or if you have branches in different countries, you can submit for the work being done at that branch. That also works. But if you implement in a country but don't have an office there, then you would, so if your office is based in Singapore and you have programs in Indonesia, Malaysia, but you don't have offices there, you would just apply as the Singapore office. Yes, someone asked a question. I'm just going to jump on that as well. If the initiatives are curated by us, but the implementation is with our clients, how should we capture that information? Lavanya, send me an email about this one so I can give you the best information about that. I think you could still capture the results of your clients. You would just need to kind of clearly communicate how you curated it and how you were involved in the process. But we do have examples of that before where the corporate has worked with an implementing partner and they submit the results for the overall project, but they also helped curate it. But yeah, send me an email and I can also help give you more specifics. Okay, what was, I know another question, sorry, great, that I wanted to answer in case it doesn't come up is the general timeline. So there's no exact timelines of when an initiative has to have started or ended. The last time we had the WEPs Awards was 2022. So if you have an initiative that ran in 2022 and maybe you didn't have the resources to run it last year or this year, you can still apply for that. If you have something that you implemented in, before COVID and you haven't done anything on gender since then, it's probably not going to win. The general rule of thumb is that the initiative, you could have started it 10 years ago, but if it still has active impacts or it's still actively running and benefiting the target group or beneficiaries, then that's still eligible, but there's no exact timeline. Okay, someone else asked, they read about financial and sustainability report requirements. Is that an option or mandatory? We don't require any financial reports at all. And sustainability reports, typically this is just what is public to be able to verify your answers. Some of the answers do require you to submit internal reports or policies. You can always only clip part of this, only kind of take a screenshot of part of a report to give to us. If it's a document that usually you keep internal, send me an email and we can talk about how we can work with you to still verify the answer. But certainly no financial reports are required at all. Okay. And yeah, just to say, we have had cases in the past where companies have kind of even sent a screenshot of an email to verify something of a new policy being rolled out, or they've sent parts of a policy with information redacted because they weren't allowed to share it. And all of that stuff in part 2 as well, again, is just for shortlisting and it's all confidential. But yeah, please always just get in touch and we can help talk about it a little bit more. Any other questions? If we don't, maybe just one before I let you go. Feel kind of like a teacher. One thing on the website as well is you can always on our website, we just have general information as well. We also have past judging panels if you're curious to look, and we have past awardees if you want to get some inspiration. This awardee tab has regional and national winners, and this has just a brief snippet of the work that they've done, a kind of synopsis of why they were awarded. This one is not uploaded yet, apologies, but it has kind of a brief snippet of what they've done. And then awardee voices, this actually captures testimonial videos. So we have videos of the top 7 regional awardees that we had for 2022. And this just gives kind of a brief overview of the work that they've done. So they're like 3 to 4 minute videos that showcase interviews with the different leaders of these companies. And showing what they've done for their practices if you want to get some inspiration or a bit more information. Okay, any last minute questions? We've got 3 minutes left. I'm going to also put in the chat, let me Google quickly our yes, I want to share our WEPs forum report while I have you all on the line. I think it's quite an interesting look as well into some of the issues we've seen in the region with companies and some of the work that they're doing and the findings that we had at our WEPs forum that we held last November. Okay. If there's no final questions, you have my email. You can always get in touch with me as well. We really, want to work with everyone to kind of have your applications and be able to potentially reshare your best practices if you're awarded. And we're always happy to have a conversation and talk a little bit more. We'll share the recording and also the slides from this session today. And I'm wishing everybody good luck on the applications and hope to hear from you soon if you want to get in touch. And thanks everyone for joining today. Have a great afternoon. Bye.